What's up, Make Pop Music? It is Austin from Make Pop Music and Austin Hole Audio and Visual, and I am super excited for today's video because I know that you guys request these all the time. We've gotten such good feedback on our Ariana Grande video and on our How to Make a Live Style Song video, so I figured, hey, a girl just dropped an insane album. If you're in the pop group, you know that everybody's been talking about it for the past week or two. So today, we're actually going to be going over how to make a Billie Eilish style track. So again, before we dive in, there are a couple things that I want to kind of go over before we start creating the track, just to kind of get the vision and the end goal in mind, right? So Billie Eilish, she has a couple key things in her style. She writes everything with her brother, so everything is really consistent to their style, so we have to kind of break that down to figure out what we're going to include on our own, right? So she's writing in super, super dark keys a lot of the time, super minor. She has a very, very soft voice. She's going to track really close to the mic and really quietly, almost like that whispery vibe, so we have to do something with that. They use a lot of acoustic guitar or piano. They use a lot of like organic style instruments and then add in some like pads and sound design and stuff like that. So we'll probably play around with acoustic guitar as our main element. And then you have to kind of start thinking about song structure. So she goes pretty minimal, and then when stuff hits, it kind of just explodes. So we definitely want it to be minimal and build on just a really, really nice acoustic guitar and a vocal with some sound design. And then once it hits, it's going to hit really, really hard. So there are a couple things that I've done in this that I do also want to go over that I personally probably wouldn't put in a track. But since she kind of does it on the album with her brother quite a bit, we're just going to kind of dive into how to do them. And one of those is going to be like the tremolo effect that you hear in Bad Guy, and then the really, really fast tremolo effect that you hear in Zanny, where it like crushes her vocals. So we'll do those, and then we'll also just go over how to do that dreamy, like Billie Eilish vocal swell falsetto kind of thing. So we're going to hop into all of those things. I already have the song done, so we're actually just going to go and run through, and I'll kind of show you exactly how I created it, what's in what place, why it's there, what effects I've used, etc. Just so we can spend more time actually diving into it rather than y'all just watching me fiddle around. So if you want to see more videos like this, let us know what artist or what style you want to see, and we'll try to deliver. If you like this video, please make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. We really, really appreciate it. These artist videos tend to get us a lot of new subscribers, and we really, really appreciate all of the love and support. But let's go ahead and actually hop into the song. Before I actually break it down, I do want to go ahead and play the track for you guys. It's only like a minute and a half, so if you want to hear the track, now is your chance before we actually start breaking into the production. If you don't want to hear it, just skip forward like a minute and a half from now. But let's go ahead and take a listen to what we're going to be doing today.
Catch me sleeping with a noose around my neck. 3, 4, you'd be surprised that I'm a little more than you'd expect. 5, 6, anxiety is making me feel sick. I'm such a wreck. Count me down or count me out, so fuck your disrespect. The voices in my head scream softly, they're telling me to stop. I'm at the bottom of the pit and crawling, but I'm reaching for the top. Can anybody hear me? If you can, then send a sign. Never quit. I think it's time to draw a line. I think it's time that I am free. I think it's time to cut the string. I'm not a puppet and twisted, far-fetched fantasies. I think it's time that I am free.
So that's pretty much it. Sorry for the little bit of a glitch. Okay, now we're actually in my DAW. Let's go ahead and just walk kind of section by section in order of kind of how I laid them down, and let's actually go into what I did and why I did it. So the first thing I had in mind was I actually played it on guitar, but just to save some time for this, I went and just used this free ample guitar Martin. And honestly, it's not too bad sounding. If I was doing this for like an actual release, I would just go ahead and track acoustic guitar. But I just wanted to do it like this, just so, you know, if you don't have an acoustic guitar, just to kind of show you that you can do it with a free plugin and it sounds okay. So what we have is, the first thing we have is this. It's just this little kind of minor run through. So let's go ahead and show you what it sounds like with no sound effects on. So just kind of stock, it sounds like this. So it sounds pretty solid, but I definitely wanted it a little bit brighter, so I added VMR, and then just kind of raised the top a little bit and just put a little bit of compression on, so it sounded a little bit more realistic. So now we've got... Then I put this short acoustic room reverb on it. That way we've got a little bit of that kind of room sound. I'll dial it back just a little bit. And then what I also did was I went ahead and put this longer reverb, and you'll see that I automate it to be off when we have like these little stop and start pauses. But that was the main thing I laid down. That was the chord progression I wanted, just that dun 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 dun. It just sounded super creepy and super minimal, and it was sad, but like still had the right amount of energy. So the next thing that I did after kind of laying that down was just played around with vocal ideas. So the thing that came to mind was just writing lyrics about kind of a really, really hard time where you're in this relationship where you feel like it's killing you, but you finally think that it's time to like kind of escape those chains and those boundaries. So it's basically about just like waking up every day miserable, your partner not taking you seriously, and you just feel like you're like shackled up, and it's just time for you to finally, you know, cut it off. So we've kind of got this as the main vocal for the verse.
1, 2, you'll probably catch me sleeping with a noose around my neck. 3, 4, you'd be surprised that I'm a little more than you'd expect.
So I knew that I wanted to kind of switch up the melody next, so that's where I went in with this kind of...
5, 6,
Let me just go ahead and turn off this tremolo, because we'll get to all of that later. So we've got something like this.
Would expect 5, 6. Anxiety is making me feel sick. I'm such a wreck, but you can count me down or count me out. So fuck your disrespect.
So for this part, what I basically did is these really spacey kind of
5, 6.
I've got it all stacked up, so it's a main vocal in the center.
5, 6.
And then I just duplicated that on the left and the right.
5, 6.
And then I added these harmonies in here.
5, 6.
And the harmonies are a little bit more wet than those main ones, just to kind of create that really airy kind of ambient sound. So I drove the harmonies pretty wet. And then we've got low harmonies also panned. So it's center, 100 left, 100 right, 74 left, 77 right, 47 left, and then 45 right. So we've got
5, 6. It's making me feel sick. I'm such a wreck, but you can count me down.
So that's basically how we keep the stacks the entire song. So once I had this main vocal and this kind of chord progression, I knew it was time to just start layering other things in, and I wanted an intro. So the first thing that kind of came to mind was just having this ambient pad kind of play one note. So we have this. And this is actually from Evolve Mutations. It's just their Broken Horizons like pad. And it's really, really simple. All it's doing is this. And that added almost like this little bit of like a wind characteristic through the back, which it really, really gave it some sustain and some nice just suspension. And then I wanted something that carried a little bit more of that melody where it's going from like A to F to E. So I have this little talking pad that I found in the Kinetic Toys library. And I was just kind of flipping through because I wanted to find like really, really creepy kind of unique sounds. So I found this one that's... It's honestly kind of sick. I'll turn off all of the effects that I put on it. So you've got this.
Are you a command, imperious leader? Stand by to attack survivors.
But I didn't want you to be able to make out all of those vocals. So I ended up just filtering it out, cut out some highs, cut out some lows, threw quite a bit of reverb on. I just have the FG16 on the ambient, 2.3 seconds, and have it super, super wet. So I've got this. And then I added a chorus to even give it a little bit more of like this weird, like kind of off-putting quality. And then I figured it was time to start adding some kind of counter melody because it felt a little simple, and we definitely want to keep it super simple, but you don't want it to be stale and boring, especially since there's no vocal going here. So I added this little bell from Easy Keys, and I've been loving Easy Keys because as I've been kind of learning theory, it's really nice to just have the chords pop up that I'm playing. That way I know to tell you guys or to tell, you know, my theory teacher or whatever, you know, I use these chords, and these chords this week. So in this one, I'm actually just doing a little bell melody on the Celestial Ambience preset. And nothing really got a lot of post-processing because we're really only going over production. We're not even going over mixing. And it was super simple. It's really all in the arrangement and not in like crazy processing. So let's check it out now. So once we had that, I was like, yep, that's all the melody that I kind of want. I just need something to kind of fill it up. And I didn't want much more kind of melody or harmony or anything like that. I really just wanted sound. So I found these three little kind of natural ambient sounds from the Cashmere pack off of Splice. So there's a fire, a thunder, and a jungle. So we just added all of those together. And then I just have this ambient hit that was also from a Cashmere pack. And it was in G, so I actually just dragged it up one step, 2 semitones. Here's what it sounds like on its own. And then I have this one that's hitting an E in the background. And that's really just to give it some extra movement, because you'll see where it hits, it kind of adds a nice little like bit of backbeat to it. And you just want stuff like that to really only come in once, just to keep it kind of interesting and give it some ear candy. So now let's actually go ahead and let's start hopping into what I did in terms of like the vocals, in terms of just like actual composition. So I dropped out all of the sound effects and like the bells and stuff like that. I really just wanted the guitar, this atmospheric pad, and the talking pad to be under these vocals. And I left the vocals super dry. So you'll see there's not a lot of reverb or delay happening. And I've done a bunch of videos on mixing vocals, so if you want to know how I mix my vocals, you can definitely go check that out. We'll leave it in the description below. But I mean, it was basic. It was just auto-tune, virtual mix rack, a little bit of EQ, a little bit more compression, some de-essing, and then just to kind of control the low mids right here. Just because I was singing super close to the mic to get that really like whispery proximity effect. But with that also came some rumbly low end that I had to kind of scoop out. So check this out.
1, 2, you'll probably catch me sleeping with a new.
So I want to talk a little bit about this. Like I said, I had that long reverb right here, like the almost 3.5 second reverb that's going on this guitar. But we have this little stop start right here. So I actually automated that off. So you'll see that the bypass, watch. And it comes back on. Just doing little details like that will make your mix and your productions so much more dynamic. So if you're having starts, take a little bit of extra time. You'll also see that I went in here to the synths and just dragged all of it down. So you'll see all of these are just volume automations where they come down. And then we'll get to these. These are like tremolo automations. So lots of automation on this just to kind of create that movement without having to add a million different effects. So definitely take that as a tip from this, is like you don't always need a million things if you have just a couple things that are working together really nicely. So you'll see that we have nothing once this all stops.
1, 2, you'll probably catch me sleeping with a noose around my neck. 3, 4, you'd be surprised that I'm a little more than you'd expect. 5, 6, anxiety.
So I definitely wanted to pull in those stacks right there. It's just a super Billie Eilish thing to do. And we heard on Bad Guy, on her new album, they kind of have this like tremolo effect that carries throughout. So it's actually the second one. We'll go to the first one a little bit later. But I basically just had a 1/8 triplet tremolo. And the depth of 80, I didn't want it completely like da 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 da. I wanted a little bit of, you know, just sustain in there. So I left it at 80. Didn't have the spatial too high because I didn't want it super, super wide. We've already got width from all the vocals. And basically all I had to do was just automate that on. So you'll see it right here. Then it comes back on when everything comes back in. So that's a really simple effect to do. I actually just added it to my vocal bus instead of having to add it to each individual element. It was really easy to just throw on this leads vocal bus. Plus it chops all of the reverbs and delays that are coming back in as well. So it's really, really consistent sounding, and you get that really, really strong tremolo effect. So
anxiety is making me feel sick. I'm such a wreck.
Then I added this little triplet delay throw. This is the stuff that Billie and her brother do really, really, really well in the song. Is like, even though we've really only got a guitar and a couple pads going with a vocal, doing that little tremolo effect, and then you know, just stacking all those little vocals, having them a little bit more wet on those swells, that kind of helps. And then when you add in something like this little triplet delay throw, it's basically just the lead vocal duplicated, and I just have it actually 1/4 ping pong. It's not even a triplet, so I should go ahead and rename that. It was originally, and then I changed it. So it's just a 1/4 delay, you know, high passed and low passed, 100% wet with some reverb. So now we get this little tail.
I'm such a wreck.
So now let's actually go into the drop, because this is kind of where everything changes, and this is where we have bass and drums and more vocal stacks and stuff start coming in, and this is really where it gets interesting, right? So let's go ahead and just see what we're doing in terms of, you know, drums and bass. So it comes in really, really, really hard, and that's one thing that like Billie and her brother are both kind of known for. So for the like really, really low, heavy-hitting 808, we use Serum, and we use just kind of that preset that we always start with, the best 808 that I've done a video on, and we've given away multiple times. So you can just start with something like that, and then what I did for this song, just to give it that extra bit of crunch, is I actually added the Diode I distortion on it. So it really gives all of those nice harmonics. And the key to this diode kind of distortion is that I do it in post. I like have this filter cutting off at like 4.5, like 450-ish hertz doing post. So basically what's happening is it's adding a filter after it's being distorted. If you do pre, it'll add that filter to whatever sound is coming into the distortion. And if you turn it off, it just won't filter it. So when you turn it off, it sounds like this, which I didn't really want for this song because that adds a lot of like buzzy high end that I just really, really don't think the song needs or that would fit it. So we just throw that post on and just kind of filtered it out like that. That way we still get the idea of having that, you know, those saturated harmonics, but we're not getting all of the buzziness, because I don't want it to sound like a saw wave or a, you know, a square wave or anything like that. I just want those harmonics to be there, and filtering it like that really gives me the option to kind of do that. And then of course we've just got some bass slides that I just, you know, play in on my actual keyboard, or I can just automate them right here into the pitch bend MIDI. But on this one I just played them. So that's really all that's going on for bass. So let's go ahead and let's look at the actual drums. So we've got a couple things going. We've got a kick, and then we've really got like a couple different rims, claps, and snare hits that all really function as like one thing. And then we've got some little risers that stutter around, and some little vocal effects that just add a nice little bit of ear candy. So for the kick, we ended up just using the depths kick from our Dark Pop pack. We'll link all of our sample packs in the description below, but for almost all of the samples on this, we used our Dark Pop pack, and then just some stuff from Splice. So that's our main kick, and we're not really doing anything to post-process it because it's already super processed. So we've got, then we've got all these hits. So the first thing that we have is this little rim hit, because I wanted kind of like that idea of like a rim hit that happens like with jazzy drums or like with swing drums a lot, where we've got a really, really short rim hit. So we've got something like this. So that nice little rim hit, what it's doing is it's just adding a lot of transient punch on those downbeats. And we're just kind of compressing that a lot with Camel Crusher, just squeezing the piss out of it. And then we've got this little short room reverb on here that's basically just adding some width. So here's it without it. and then here's it with it driven up. So it's just giving it almost like a little bit of a slap back just to kind of pop it in the mix a little bit more. So that's a really, really nice transient attack, but we kind of wanted a little bit more room and space to it, but we didn't want to put it on that because it would just have this like kind of loose quality that we weren't really trying to go for. So I layer a snap over it, and this is just the Bit Connect snap from the Dark Pop pack. So this snap has the reverb already printed in, so it's a roomier sample. So I didn't really need to do anything to it post-wise. It's just good to go. Layering that, you still get the transient of the snap, but you're getting a little bit of that room and reverb just from the sustain on the actual sample itself. I wanted a little bit more sustain though, and I didn't want to throw any reverb on those two elements because I like how transient they are. So I added this other rim hit that we have called Simple and Sweet, and that is just from our Dark Pop pack as well. And this one is super roomy, so it doesn't have a ton of transient response, but it does have a really, really long room, and I've actually just chopped it, so it's basically to time on this grid. So now we've got this. So that's pretty much it. We've got one more clap that we layer in right here, and then we've got a snare hit. So the clap is just this swords clap. So far we've added the initial rim hit for transient, the snap for transient and room, the rim hit, the second rim hit for a little bit more room. Now we've got this clap. This is really just for tonality because it's got kind of this weird metal sound printed in it. So that just adds a nice little cool bit of depth to it, to where it's not really reverb, it's not really like transient, it's just adding a little bit of extra sauce to it. Then we add a trappy snare just to give it that nice little last bit of kind of punch and consistency. So we've got all of those. And then what we do is right here where everything stops, of course, we have, you know, all of the rooms and the reverbs turned off of everything. We turn the synth off, so we've got
the voices in my head scream softly. They're telling me to stop. I'm at the bottom of a pit and...
So the next thing that we have in this kind of percussion section is we've got these two little risers right here. So when you have these chopped risers like this, it really provides you the opportunity to not to have to bring in some big hit or cymbal hit or something like that on the actual one beat of this. When you chop it, it kind of creates that, and then everything else coming in is enough to kind of create that that movement and that tension that you're kind of really, really wanting. And if you're hearing any noise pop in and out, it's just from the actual organ. So you'll see that like when it's automated off, you can't hear it. But yeah, I think, you know, adding risers and chopping them up to, you know, be a little bit more dynamic to offer some rhythm is a really, really good way to kind of use those elements. So we've got that. And then other than that, in the drums, all we have is these little vocal hits that just happen a couple times. So it's just a vocal stutter from our Funk Pop pack. And then that's it. So just that kick, those rim hits, you know, the really short snappy rim and then the longer rim, a snap with some reverb, a clap with some reverb, and then really, really short snappy trap snare. Then we've just got those vocal hits, and that's it for drums. And then you'll see not much has changed in synths. The only thing we have changed is we've now added this organ. So that's really it. It's just from the Arturia collection. It's just the B3, and it is the preset Coquette. And then I just, you know, kind of messed around with a little bit of this stuff. Not too much is happening though. And the reason that I have this organ coming in is, for one, it provides a nice little bit of rhythm. So it adds like a really, really simple rhythm to go over the drums, where I don't need to put in something higher like a hi-hat that I don't really want sonically. It gives me that same rhythm, that dun, 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 just kind of pedaling the 1, 2, 3, 4. Because everything else is so kind of syncopated and, you know, just all over the place. So I wanted something to be a little bit more consistent with that. So now we've got this. And of course it comes out. So like I said, we're really just adding that for texture and for rhythm. And then this is where we have a lot of the vocal production stuff coming in, right? So let's go ahead and take a look. We did that really, really key. I probably wouldn't add this myself just because now that it's been done in Billie's album, it's kind of like her and her brother's signature thing. So use it kind of at your own disposal. I would be really careful with just like using it a lot though. It's this little tremolo vocal effect. So again, we just added a tremolo. This one's 1/32 triplet, and we've got it at 100% depth and 50% spatial because I really want this one to chop. So you could do it with something like a tremolo, you could do something with like a frequency shifter, or you could even do something where you just actually like analog clip it to where it just clips the shit out of it. But I went ahead and did that tremolo just because it's the most simple and it worked really well for this. So when this bass comes in, you'll see I automate it on and then it turns off.
The voices in my head scream softly. They're telling me to stop.
So that's really all that's happening for that effect is all of these vocal stacks. It's again just a main vocal left, a main vocal right, and then one harmony. I don't even have the lower harmonies on this.
The voices in my head scream softly.
It's just that one tremolo effect doing all of that. So it's super simple. It sounds really impressive on the album, and it takes like 15 seconds to do. So I've got that, and then when everything stops, of course I automate all of the volumes and reverbs and everything like that off just to create that really punchy stop. And then I've got this artificial low vocal, which is just the main vocal dragged down 1 octave in Auto-Tune Pro, and then doubled to give me some width. And then I also went ahead and turned that little tremolo on for that. So
To stop. I'm at the bottom of it.
and that just added this really cool kind of like warbly effect to that, which I really liked. So we've got
The voices in my head scream softly. They're telling me to stop. I'm at the bottom of a pit and crawling, but I'm reaching for the top.
now this part changes up a little bit because the melody changes, so the same harmonies wouldn't have exactly worked. So we have this main melody right here.
Can anybody hear me?
And then what I did was I actually just did an octave lower than that for a harmony and spread that out. So we don't have these main like 3rd or 5th harmonies on the side.
Can anybody hear me? If you can, then send a sign.
And then what I wanted to do to give us a little bit of that kind of harmonic composition, instead of tracking a bunch of harmonies like I already did, I wanted to change it up a little bit just to kind of create a little bit of dynamic between the first part of this verse and the second part of this verse. So we did a vocoder, and if you don't know how to set up vocoders and stuff like that, we do have a full tutorial on that, which I'll also link in the description below. But basically what I did is had the same chain for my vocal, just so it's a little consistent. And then we did MIDI mode on Vocal Synth 2, and then basically just played around with some settings until we got something that we liked, and we just ran the same, you know, A minor chord to F to E. So that's really all we have going, and it's just doing this.
Can anybody hear me? If you can, then send a
So that's really all it's doing. It's just under that main vocal. So altogether, that's going to sound like this.
Can anybody hear me? If you can, then send a sign. But to the demons in my mind, they never quit.
So adding that vocoder gave us a lot of that spread and that harmony that we wanted without having to do these like really natural, organic, flowy harmonies, which I like. And that's really all that comes in. I bring some extra little of those vocal hits in, the wah and the yeah, that are from the Dark Pop pack as well. And then that's pretty much it. So altogether, we've just got that tremolo vocal effect happening a couple times here and there. And then we've just got all of these vocal layers, some drums, a little organ doing a dun, 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 and then just the same pads and guitar.
In my head scream softly. They're telling me to stop.
So adding that little like stop, start, and all that kind of stuff, that adds a lot of dynamic where you don't have to put a lot of like risers and hits and just a whole bunch of production. The actual song is telling you what the production should do, right? So the production should stop. So let's kind of go to this little, I don't know, like second part. Just I guess it's like an outro for the purpose of this video. And that's just kind of where everything dies back down. So what I wanted to do was I wanted to pull in these ambient sounds again, and then I wanted to actually bring in a piano. Just to do a little bit of something different.
I think it's time that I am free.
And then I just added that same delay throw that we had earlier.
That I am am free. I think
And then let's go ahead and take a listen.
it's time that I am free. I think it's time to cut the string. I'm not a puppet for your sick.
And then what we did is I just have a really, really spacey piano. It's from the Arturia Piano 5. I believe it's the gray piano preset. And then I just dragged the reverb down a bit, dragged the hardness and the hammers up just a little bit to kind of give me a little bit more attack. And then just played those chords. And I didn't quantize it because I like the kind of natural, you know, the little, that kind of flows in. And it's just doing that. And then we're just playing the high note. And that's it. So that's going under that guitar and under all of those sound effects. And we've got that ambient hit 1 and ambient hit coming back in. And then what we did for the vocals was, since it's a lot more cymbal in this part, and we've had such a dry vocal the whole time, is I actually duplicated this vocal track. And then I just threw on a really, really massive reverb. I threw on the Saunders Hall at almost 3 seconds, 100% wet. So it's almost like setting up another parallel, except I didn't want to have to set up another parallel. And then I just EQ'd it. So we've got this.
I'm not a puppet for your sick and twisted fuck.
And that just adds a lot of space to that last part, right? So we've had so much going on before. It's just a nice little chance to catch your breath, you know, just to relax a little bit. And adding that spaciness of that vocal gives us a little bit of extra depth and dimension. So we've got...
That I am free. I think it's time to cut the string. I'm not a puppet for your sick and twisted, far-fetched fantasies. I think it's time that I am free.
And then I just pulled in the harmonies and the vocoder again for I think it's time that I am free, just because that's kind of like the hook. And then it just fades out. So that's pretty much it. Let's just recap real quick. The song basically started with just that guitar that carries all the way through it, and then my lead vocal. Just...
You'll probably catch me sleeping with a noose around my neck.
Then I just added some of these little ambient pads.
You'll probably catch me sleep.
Then I added these little ambient noises and this extra little melody right here with this bell. Then I had these ambient hits just to kind of create a little bit more movement and rhythm. And then really it's just like using really strategic, you know, automation to stop and start everything. Make sure you don't have reverbs carrying over stops. Make sure you don't have the tremolo carrying over into sections it doesn't need to be in. And that's pretty much it. So yeah, hopefully you're able to use some of these elements. Bada boom, it's done. As you can see, we made a Billie Eilish style track. Like I said before we actually got into the session, there were a couple things that I wanted to keep in mind. Acoustic guitar going throughout as the main element, soft whispery vocals, lots of vocal stacks, weird little vocal effects. There's not a lot of tracks going on, but there's a lot of automation and there's a lot of like stopping and starting, and it's kind of all in the way that the top line is written that really progresses it. Instead of just throwing and throwing and throwing production on top of each other, you really have to like write it and produce it strategically along the way, so it kind of builds naturally. So hopefully you learned a couple things in this video. Hopefully you enjoyed it and it was entertaining. Let me know if you guys think that this sounds like a Billie Eilish song. If you don't, that's okay. I mean, I definitely gave it my best effort. I think that we're carrying a lot of the same elements. I know that there's probably going to be some people saying it sounds like somebody else, and that's 100% fine, but the most important thing is that you were able to take some of these tips and tricks and styles, and you can include those in your own production, because you're not trying to make a Billie Eilish song at the end of the day. You're trying to make a song for you. So take these tips, take these tricks, include them in your own production, and then yeah, if you have anything, feel free to post it on our group. Come join the group if you're not already in it. We love to hear people's demos they're working on. Other than that, I will see you guys next time. Let us know what videos you want to see. If you like this, please like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you next time. Much love. Peace out. Make pop music.
The voices in my head scream softly. They're telling